Hello and welcome to Indiepocalypse Radio. Once again, back for another show. I've spent a lot of time kind of trying to see if I can't figure out whether I just want to download all my. I have a lot of music on my Amazon library over the years that I accumulated, and I just want to download it all, and I just want to hit a button that says it all, because I had a hard drive that failed, and I have bits and pieces of it, kind of like, so I have like, here's 4 of the tracks from Loveless, how do I, but then you have all of the tracks from this other album, like, wow, and then it's like, I just want to, it sucks. Anyway, speaking of non-music woes and other things to that nature, we have, I run Indiepocalypse, as they say, and all these things. I host the show, Indiepocalypse, the anthology of alternative games, as I'm calling it currently. And we've got a collection of, I don't know if they self-identify as alternative game makers, but there's no word for it anymore. I think someone just used the term AAA indie recently, and words don't mean anything anymore, I guess. They've all gone the wayside. But speaking of things that are coming to the opposite of the wayside, whatever that is, it's our first guest, who you may know from issue 34 of Indiepocalypse, and with the Yo-Yo Zonk. It's KDX. KDX, hello. How are you today?
Hello, I'm doing good.
Perfect. So quick question to get it all out of the way right up front. I gotta know, as in both a bit of introduction and an informal survey on my part. How did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
I've been knowing about it for a while. I think I found it browsing jams on itch.io, and then I followed the zine for a pretty long time because I always liked the concept, and the games that came out of it were interesting.
Cool. And also the game you put into it, likewise interesting. So tell me, and the listening audience, a little bit of like, what is the Yo-Yo Zonk?
I'm not sure I can describe it.
In the broadest terms that you are able to describe it, how would you describe it?
It's a self-conscious, parodic multiplayer Zelda-like with asymmetrical gameplay between player 1 and player 2.
Yeah.
It has a lot of bad jokes.
Yes, it has a. I feel bad jokes is putting yourself down, but it has a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. There's not a good word for it, but it is. I think it is something. When it came across the submission queue, it is like, I feel it's something that's been missing from. That I don't always get a lot of, because I think when you lean towards alternative, you kind of get the very self-serious and earnest and, if you will, that sort of side of art. But sometimes a fella just needs a shit post.
Yeah, it's a cheese post.
Yeah, you just see like this kind of this kind of realm of the absurd, and it's kind of like a bit of asynchronous multiplayer, as they say, absurdity.
Yeah, sure. We tried to, well, we do serious stuff, but we just needed to let it go for a while.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun creating.
Yeah, because there's and because you did not make this alone, this was a collaborative work.
Yeah, yeah, I made it with Marcena over 2 weeks. But yeah, we took 2 weeks off and we only spent working on the game. So we made a lot of progress at once, and we are pretty happy with the result.
Yeah, a lot of this, the purpose of this zine is kind of be like, hey, you know, you don't need to spend 10 years of your life making every single game. Sometimes all you need is a weekend or a couple weeks even. And you get sort of, you know, something out of it. So, so how long did the kind of companion book? When was that like always a part of the development process?
We thought about it at the end of the project, like 2 or 3 days before the end. I think Masna spent at least a day of work on it. And yeah, I mostly went back, made feedback, and corrected some mistakes. But yeah, it was at the end of the development cycle, and I think it added a lot to the game.
Yeah, it adds a lot to the kind of the whole package of the thing. This kind of ROM hack adjacent feeling of it. This. A lot of, I guess I did not realize that a lot of the guests on this show, this particular episode, are if not ROM hack adjacent, definitely like harkening back to a previous era of game design, of aesthetics, but with like, it feels easy to say with modern sensibilities, because I think, you know, they were not stupid. In fact, that making games, they knew also what they were doing, and I think it was harder to get a hand on the homebrew market. Certainly a lot harder than it is now, which is very easy to get access to people's homebrew stuff because there's just a million websites you can just throw them onto. But you've also done like sort of a couple of what would you call them? Were they in? Yeah, was this Pico 8? What's that? Yes, yeah, like this. Like you've also done work in like Pico 8 and stuff like that. So is there an appeal to kind of this? Either literal sort of restrictive retro consoles or just like this kind of older design in general.
Yeah, even when I'm not working with restricted environments, I usually put the restrictions myself because I don't plan ahead enough, so they just come up. And when I don't have any restrictions, I usually don't finish games.
Right.
So platforms like Pico 8 and projects spanning a few days or weeks are the one I can manage the most.
Yeah, because you run into this problem where what's the word I'm looking for? When you can make anything, there is like the what's the word? The finite space of a hard drive is not really the same as the finite space for canvas. It's
yeah,
functionally infinite in comparison.
Yeah, but with time, I think it's getting easier to deal with game release.
Yeah.
I still finish like 1 in 10 projects, but it's better than before.
Yeah, hey, 1 in 10 is the fact that you worked on 10. I think is also an important. Like instead of you finished 0 out of 1.
Yeah.
Which
Sure.
is, I think, the trap a lot of people fall down. And I think there's a lot of value in kind of floundering around in like having failed projects, or not. I think failed is the wrong word, but like incomplete
Yeah.
games. Because you still worked on them. There's still something you took out of it.
Yeah. I love some of them. I'm just too lazy to release.
Right.
Like
Right. Because it's like,
they're not polished. They don't have any levels. They're just an idea.
yeah. And I think that's good. I've been trying to encourage more this idea of, game designers should have more, like, game designers should also be able to have sketchbooks,
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out how that would work, but it's pretty complicated.
Yeah.
Mm.
But there's trying to, there's no, I think, kind of like anything in art, there's no real correct approach.
Maybe it will develop with years. The media is still very young.
Oh, sorry, I missed that last part.
The media is still very young.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying earlier this year that like when other mediums are like well into their age, I did not own a computer until like the late 90s or something. So the idea that I could even make a game was like still about 20, like not even 30 years old.
Mm.
And that is even like, if I had like, what was the game making, like I would have had to learn programming probably. I don't know if like Game Maker was around back then. Certainly not like Unity and all these other things.
I don't know how old Game Maker is.
Yeah, me either. But it feels like it's old. But a lot of the tools that do not require you to learn like some branch of C have been around like even less time and like been easily affordable, and that any computer could reliably run them. All these kind of factors are just, even like they get younger, as many with each of the, what's the word I'm looking for, with each of the kind of layers you put onto them. I was browsing your page and I didn't realize like, oh yes, you had known about it for a while, because it was like, did I even like, this was the second like Yo-Yo's Lock was the second submission you had submitted.
Yeah. I submitted empty. I don't know when. 1 year ago, 2.
Yeah, about 1 year ago at this point, which is crazy how time creeps up on you like that. And it's like, yeah, it's just kind of like and there's so much, and it's always why I encourage people to, and sometimes I forget to send out these messages, but I always say, hey, always double, triple, whatever, submit, sometimes the same game, sometimes other games, because sometimes there's plenty of times where it's like other games just did not fit in like this collection, or sometimes it did not hit me in the right way. I think I've had people submit a game that just kind of washed over me 1 month, and then 3 months later I'm like, oh wait a minute, I love this thing. And it's all about like hitting because it's it's easy to forget or not know in the first place, or assume otherwise, that this is all done by just me. There is no tribunal overseeing these games. There's no graphics, music, sound grading rubric I use.
Yeah, thank God.
It's just, right. It's just kind of, do I like this thing? Do I think it vibes with the zine? And then sometimes the answer to those questions is both yes, but then there may be like, oh, but there's too many of the games like this in this issue, or it does not vibe with this issue the same way. Sometimes it's nice to. Sometimes games have like weird, almost like companion pieces in a way within them. The last one had like multiple games about like kind of old. One was Game Boy style, one was RPG Maker style, but like, you know, children encountering their parental like father style legacy through top down Game Boy style adventure games. And I like to see like, here are people approaching these subjects from radically different angles.
Oh, at first I thought you were talking about a series of a game composed of different game engines playing next to one after the other, but
no, this was two entirely different people.
I got it now.
who are broaching up the same subject and happen to submit within the same month.
Don't you have a backlog for that kind of thing, or do you just wait for the person to resubmit?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. I do have. I'm actually for the first time. I'm probably going to start on Monday. I made the tab because traditionally I would have a wait list and I would just like go through each like curated. Because I make like a Google sheet to organize each month's worth of submissions. And I would go back and I would be like, which of these games were waitlisted? Which of these games do I want to include? And so now I'm going to actually actively kind of put them all just on one page instead of having to go through what is now 36 pages worth of submissions.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because there are definitely like, oh yeah, I really want to include this game, and then they did not submit to the next issue, but then I'll just like, even when they don't submit, I'll just send them the acceptance because they were like the hard 11th game. That it was like, there's really just like this framework that I set up for myself, of course, like they did not fit into this 10 game framework, which is surprising that like still after 3 years it's possible to still without repeats even still there be like too many people sometimes.
Yeah, it's impressive.
It's kind of like, oh, people never stop making games, as it turns out. In these 3 years, there have become new game developers that were not making games 3 years ago when I started this. And there'll be new game developers every month because it's just like anyone can make games, so it's, why not try? But speaking of, you know, anyone can make games and anyone can this long legacy of independent publishing. I have a question here for you from Mochi, the longtime fans of the show, or I say multi-week fans of the show perhaps might be familiar with this question, which is, no, the first couple months we had a 100% hit rate on this question. Last week we was a full 0, so we're going to see how this week starts out with KDX. Do you have... Oh, wait, and the question has changed, maybe? I think it's traditionally been what is? I don't remember, though. Do you have a favorite Toho character?
No.
Definitive.
Yeah, I don't... I played a bit to the 6, I think, but
yeah.
I don't even remember the characters.
Yes, So I've been looking into it lately because this question keeps coming up, and sometimes people are big fans, and then I realized like even on Steam they're like not in English, and are there like patches? So I'm like, wait, so how do you learn the characters? Does everyone who's in the Toho, are they all bilingual or multilingual? And one of those linguals being Japanese, or is there a heavy patch scene, and then there's some where you just have to buy CDs from Japan in order to play them? It's a
yeah, I still don't know how to play a Toho game properly.
yeah, it's an exciting little world that I slowly kind of dive
It sounds
into.
interesting. Sounds interesting. I just never dug into it.
Right. It's because it's very dense.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. It's been around for a long time. Like, I don't know, 30 years or something at this point, almost, maybe. Let me do my...
It started in the 19th, so 90s.
Yeah. So it's like a veritable franchise, but also a very fascinating and unique thing. And I think it kind of works. It's a great example of this sort of like collaborative and kind of like semi-iterative but not fully iterative nature of art, and it's kind of people taking their own approach to these ideas.
Yeah, the community knocks a bit like the I Will Be the Guy fan game base.
Yeah.
Seems to me, yes. And it's really cool to look into. There's a lot of stuff always.
Yeah, but a lot of stuff, but I do not have enough time for all that stuff. But speaking of not having enough time, though, I'll say I did get very close. Oh right, there I was. Where was I ending this? Where was I going with this? I had a really good segue plan, but the segue was that KDX, we are reaching the end here of our segment, if you believe it. It's already hit our hard 20. So I wanna say give you I guess switch to a break thing. I want to say thank you for joining me here.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for submitting to the zine entirely, and I hope you will stick around for our group segment here at the end.
Yeah, see you later.
Let's see it, and I'm gonna buy some more time while I pick a GIF. I forgot what it was. I forgot what I named. See, the beauty of you just naming things like a lunatic is sometimes you forget what you named them. But sometimes you're like, oh, this makes perfect sense. And then other times you're like, what is this thing called? And I found it. Alright, well, we'll be back in about 2 minutes. Hello, and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Haru Nemuri with Nemuri. See, I'm getting all messed up, and as I properly teach myself this language, where I'm like, oh man, I really mispronounced a lot of these things, but now that I know how you say the sounds, I'm catching myself between knowing the sound, that real fighting game conundrum where you're good enough to screw yourself up. Also, the song was called Underground. We are here with back with our next guest, who you may know from issue 31 of. A lot of times we'll get a bunch of guests all from the same issue because that's just kind of how it naturally flows. But there, we got 3 guests all from 3 different issues this week, and this guest is from issue 31 with Catharsis, not spelt like that, but said like that in bracket. It's going to be all right. Close bracket. It's Love Games. Hello, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing great. That's my intro. So I gotta now. Traditionally, with the commission guest, this question does not work the same because a lot of times they learned about Indiepocalypse because they got a message from me one day. but based on I was going to copy and paste the message for April's commission, and you were the most recent person that I hate to air my secrets, but yes, I copy paste a lot of the information I give to people. I don't actually type out giant messages every single time.
Oh no!
But then I went to get it from yours. I'm like, oh wait a minute, this is not my usual. This is very short. So presumably Love Games got asked the question: how did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
From another person you commissioned, Resney.
Yes.
Resney and Jars, who made Mangle Paw. They were very excited to work with you, and I remember when you reached out to me, I asked, did Resney put you up to this? And you said no.
Right. I'm increasingly not knowing about like the connections between different game developers. And
there's connections apparently.
Yeah, it's super. I don't know if you saw. I think you did. Guard of Vextro that just came out recently.
Yeah.
Like I did not know all these different developers were like connected to each other.
Yeah, it's a small gaming world, I guess.
Yeah, because I'm like, oh, I can maybe connect two of these. I'm like, oh yes, it's also very exciting to see collections that are just like, hey, look, it's just Indiepocalypse people, and then perhaps future Indiepocalypse people, and how as I stop to worry about commissioning people who I think have a little more reach than me, and I just start to commission people who I think are cool. Which is not to say the prior group I did not also think were cool, but they were like cool, but also maybe I can get 3 more people to look at this thing if I paid this person in particular. But speaking of people being paid in particular, you being paid in particular to make this game, tell me about your game.
So Catharsis is an unspeakable link to the past, like Mpreg simulator.
Yes.
That is extremely gay.
Accidentally breaking my no safe for work seal, something I've been thinking about for a long time.
Wow, am I your first? Oh no.
Like in the kind of like visually explicit category, I should say.
Well, I did not know that.
No, it's fine. You're speaking to a fellow who owns and admits publicly to owning the passion of Gengoro Tagame. I have no issue with explicit content.
Yeah, it's a subject I've been wanting to make a game about for a while. It's a very angry game because I'm a very angry person, but I put it in a cute package. You can hit things with the wrench and collect little hearts. So I hope it appeals to everyone, despite it being it.
Yeah,
What's this show rated?
What?
Like, what's this show rated? Like, how?
Whatever you want to be. I don't really care. I am an adult here. We are adults speaking to one another.
Okay. All right. Noted. Yeah. Well, you bang demons and have their babies.
Yeah.
In 2D. It's also about like finding community as a queer person, not really fitting in and just like going out and being angry and wanting to destroy the world, but then like accidentally finding friends and purpose in that journey. I don't know. There's a lot of soul garbage that I poured into this.
Yes, that is what I use a lot of words to describe games I like being in Indiepocalypse, but I think at the end of it is like what I like to feel is another human being within the game.
Yeah.
Like more than anything else is like, this a person clearly made this game, like because they felt there was something inside of them that they need to get out.
Yeah, I feel that's important.
Yeah, and sometimes that is like. I think it's important to realize that it's not always. I think it gets shorthanded sometimes to mean like storytelling stuff, but also it's like. I think the recent Sylvie Lime is a perfect example of like there are people who are recognizable through like how they explore mechanics as well.
Yeah, that's fun.
And like
it can be fun.
Yeah, their approach to design and their approach to I did like you said up front that it was not for kids, and but then I'll be honest, it took me like a month and a half maybe to realize that the protagonist was hanging dong in the promo clip video image. I think it wasn't until you made your own thing and I saw a black bar over one of them, or no, I think you had said, "Is it getting like shadow banned or whatever for explicit?" I'm like, "It's explicit." I'm like, "Oh, there you are. Hello there."
Yeah, well, that's intentional.
Yeah, it is intentional.
I did want the main character to have his dong out the entire time, but I did not want it to be like the notable thing about him. So it's pretty de-emphasized.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what else it gets me banned from, I guess.
Yeah, it is, but in that way that it broke that precedent to where you think, what if I just made a real fucking filthy issue of Indiepocalypse, like a real just like real down and dirty horny issue, because like I think there's so much space for filth in art that it kind of gets sidelined because its relationship to just like not being, what's the word, proper, I guess.
Yeah, I mean I made this game on RPG Maker, but I cannot share it on any RPG Maker forum because they all have rules against this sort of thing.
Right.
So if you're trying to fund unfundable games that no one would ever want to fund, that I mean it's worth considering, I guess. Yeah. Because that's an area that's not getting funded.
Yeah, it's a weird. I mean there are, I believe, some people, if you hit it right, you get a bunch of money on Patreon if you're making the right kind of smut. But that is like the right kind of smut, I think. The one that straddles the line more on, because I think people like once you have sex or just even like certain degrees of nudity, it just gets thrown into the pornography bucket, and there is no escaping from the pornography bucket.
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of a thing. I mean, it's very weird. Do you think only games get that sort of treatment? Because like Schindler's List has nudity in it, but nobody calls that pornography.
Right.
Is it special because it's a movie?
Yeah, and I think other mediums have more leeway with just pornography, or not with just nudity rather.
Maybe.
But where games feel like even nudity is kind of like frowned upon. And there's definitely space, and I think it becomes more of a gray area as you approach like what more is like here is sex, and depending on like your level of explicitness, I think you start to like other mediums tend to also unless you're in like the pure independent space, tend to shy away from that perhaps.
Yeah. And I've tried making games about sex before, but when you start gamifying sex and like turning it into a thing that has winners and losers and mechanics, it can get really, really gross really fast, and it's not. It's something I quickly abandoned, trying to gamify sex, because it sends a really bad message. So there's that thing too.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is unfair, but like a decent amount of just like even games with dating elements in them feels very too gamifiable, you know?
Yeah, it gets it. On the other hand, that's like really interesting to think about. Like that's a really big subject that's hard to broach. But maybe, I don't know. I mean, and I have seen some just exploitive trash that is just really unkind to its subject. I don't know. There's a whole gamut of ways to be uncomfortable about this.
Yeah.
All sorts of illegal things you can get banned for if you start getting into it.
It's all very messy, but also, as I said on, I think last episode, that I love mess, you know? I love really messy art that does not have, like, I don't know, a clear moral or
there's a place for that, I think.
Ask you questions outside of like the broadest possible questions, and sometimes does not provide clear answers.
Yes, definitely.
So I gotta ask you, what is your relationship to I don't know how to say this, but then your UI is extremely European. I say that with a huge compliment for this game.
Like the HUD?
Yes, the HUD. The HUD is extremely like giant ZX vibes.
Well, I have been really into like visual novels for like the PC-98 and just those really, really maximalist HUDs with like all the Greek statues and everything that are just like there for the entire game. Just these stupidly detailed HUDs that I don't know. I just thought it looked neat. I wanted to try my hand at it. So that's it's just I'm always looking for visual things that I can improve and experiment with. So that's just kind of the latest thing that I'm into. I guess I'm in my maximalist period right now.
No, it's a cool thing because it's like I especially love the touch of the ever-present logo.
That's marketing told me to add that.
Yes, it's a very I remember when I was looking at like at some point because it predates me, but seeing old Atari games that always had, or old Activision Atari games always had Activision down at the bottom, just so you know who brought you here.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think there's I think what's it called? Games sometimes get games are having a weird relationship with, I think, and maybe it's just I think they don't know how to approach the word auteur properly. Maybe, and I think they equate it to being an asshole boss rather than just someone who has a distinct vision.
Right. That's that would be. I wish we had more like auteurs rather than auteurs.
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily because I like individuals, I guess, but I just like style. Like a game that has a really distinct visual style, even if it looks, bad. If I can tell it from all of the other games at a glance, and tell exactly who did it at a glance, that's really appealing to me. That's the kind of game that I like to play, so it's the kind of game that I want to make.
Yeah, or like there's very much like, or you can be in the process of playing a game like this. The systems feel so familiar. They're like, oh, the way these things move, like this person has clearly thoughts about what menu should be like.
Yeah, exactly. It's cool. That's really all there is to it. I just think it's really cool when something has a style.
Yeah, and that's I like to encourage it, and I think it gets. I think it's also because I think most people are probably how do I say this without bullying gamers. They don't have much of a broad palette, perhaps I should say. So you don't.
Perhaps.
I think maybe the people's closest experience to anyone approaching an auteur, and that's only because he made fun of the Marvel movies, is Martin Scorsese. But like, I wonder how much else people have like experiences with people who fall into like an auteur label traditionally.
I wonder. I also wonder if it's really the gamer's job to have taste. Maybe the game developers should make good stuff, and I don't know. I mean, people like what they like, and if they like bland garbage, then that's fine. You know, I don't, but maybe people shouldn't. I mean, maybe the people making the bland garbage shouldn't make bland garbage. I mean, you have a budget of $1 bazillion and you use it to make something totally unremarkable. I feel like you failed at some kind of responsibility there.
Right.
I'm not sure how much of this we can blame on gamers.
Yeah. It's unless it's the gamers that are making it. Eventually, we all grow up to be gamers. All gamers grow up to be game developers.
Well, you can blame gamers for some things.
Yeah, and I think this me just being there's billions of people in the world, and why am I trying to ascribe a necessity for this narrow group to have a specific taste? You know, that I see.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's always going to be, you know, the generic stuff that's for everybody, and also the fringe stuff that only some people are going to be like.
Yeah.
I feel like there should be room for all of it, but the stuff that makes the most money gets the most funded, and just by volume, the stuff that there is more of, the generic stuff is just going to get more money.
Yeah.
And that's just always how it's going to be. But the mistake is then making the thing that gets most money, make it be the only thing that gets money, and remove the stuff that's less popular. I don't know. There's this phenomenon like on radio. I forget what it's called, but basically when radio was new, there were a million different channels, and every channel was about a different subject, but some subjects were more popular, so all of the other radio channels switched over to doing what that one radio channel was doing to be the most popular, and pretty soon every channel is playing the same exact thing, because they're all mimicking the one that was the most popular, and that's I think that's going to be a thing. I mean, I'm trying not to bully gamers either.
Yeah.
But I really do wish there was more fringe stuff, and it wasn't always just getting cut and getting removed and stomped out.
Yeah, I think there needs to be more like weird, like boutique sort of publishers who are just like, hey, let's fund some weird alternative stuff every now and then. And on top, like, let's use our 6 roguelikes in the year to fund someone's horny smut RPG, you know? That like
exactly.
But, even I am like guilty of some of these tendencies where I'll be like, I'll see so like, you know, if people were in other larger funded anthologies, I will like I just like they enter like my blind zone. It's like, well, they don't need my help when really they probably got like, as opposed to my like $200, they got like $500 or whatever. But that's not like they got they're set for life, you know.
Yeah, that's true. It's man, it all comes back to capitalism, doesn't it? Like,
yes. Really unfortunate how we all need money.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But speaking of no, wait, never mind. Let's just full change. This is from. All right, hold on, I'll get this right. Nanakiri Bookworm. This is a question specifically for you.
Oh, okay.
For love games, what's the most important part of your game-making process when dealing with queer themes? And before you answer, in parentheses, it says, love Catharsis, by the way. Really enjoyed my time with it.
Aww. What is most important? That is hard. I think it's different for everyone.
Yeah, so what is for you? What's your process of it?
So I want to be kind to other queer people. I want to be kind to the lost, confused queer teenager I used to be, especially.
Yeah.
I want to make games for that person. And I think it's important to be kind, but also not lie about what you're going to be up against, because it's gonna suck.
Yeah.
Like, people suck, but that's not a reason to give up.
That is.
And this, I see most queer media falls into one of two categories. There's the queer fantasy land where everyone's queer and everyone's happy and it's not hard, and there's the other that's just like total black-pilled, everything's terrible because I'm queer and they all hate me. And I mean, I think they both have their merits. I think they're both important, but neither one is my style.
Yeah.
I try to make games with happy endings for the queer person, even if it's not how I feel about it at the moment. That
is also very weirdly, to bring it back to the man at the top that I mentioned, Gengoro Tagame. his like one of his most recent thing I translated into English, Our Colors, ends with like a very similar thing where it's like, I wanted to make this for the queer teenage me that did not have this frame of reference, and I think that's like a more common thing, I think, with like a certain older community. Not to say you're old, but
it's okay.
The 90s were a different time with queer culture, you know? I
guess so.
They were very different than they are than what you experienced in 2020, to put it politely.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So I think there is a kind of, I think that is also like is probably most in line with kind of like how I like to think, which is also mostly just because I tend to view everything as very muddied and very, spectrumized, and like, there's good and bad to everything and all these things, and you take them both together, empathy, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of empathy, do you have a favorite Toho character?
You say that again?
Do you have a favorite Toho character?
I have never played a Toho.
Okay.
I like the maid, though. I think her name is Luna, because she's... Man, I have so many friends who are into Toho, so I just absorb a lot of it by osmosis. But she's basically just a normal human who is just really, really skilled to the point where she can go toe-to-toe with all of these other gods, and she's wearing a maid outfit, which I think is cute. So I guess I like her.
Okay. she's the one in the game I almost bought, I think.
Yeah, she has her own Metroidvania now.
Yeah. I almost bought that because I played through that Lodos War game and I was like, this rules. This is... Somebody really liked Symphony of the Night and then made their version of Symphony of the Night.
Yeah, I haven't actually played either, but they look really cool, don't they?
Yeah, if you like Castlevania Symphony of the Night starring Alucard, son of Dracula, you may like that Record of the Lodos War game.
Okay.
To the point where like the animations are the same, like there is speaking before we close this thing. Speaking of very specific styles, like the way a character swings their the classes of weapons and the way a character swings each class of weapon within a I think those like whatever you call that style of the Symphony into the portable style of Castlevania, it's all the same within that game, and it's like, oh, there's like it's a gameplay language that I understand.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I can't throw stones at that from my glass house.
Listen, if you're, it depends on your how comfortable you are with your glass house, because otherwise I'd throw stones wherever you please. But anyway, believe this is me trying to wrap it up because this is actually the end of our time here.
All right. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being here, for making a game and everything, you know, and condolences for I think no longer you. I believe you actually held the top spot for a while too. Even
top in what?
The top selling spot.
No way.
Yeah.
Turns out like
explicit queer mess. People show up for it. They were
no way.
They were like, yeah. Let me do a quick thing here.
Well, good for me.
Yep. Number 2, only recently overtaken by issue 34. The nice. Sylvie crew is strong.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's a fun thing. All right. Well, thanks so much for funding me and having me here. It's been fun.
Thank you. We're gonna go to break as soon as I find where Fubar is hiding, and then we'll be back in like 2 minutes and 38 seconds with our next guest. Bye. Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Acoustic Guitar by The Magnetic Fields. We are here with our last and final guest of the show, who you may know from issue 23? Yes, 23. Got it in one of Indiepocalypse with Policia do Espanto. It is Pedro Manos. Pedro, how are you doing today? Uh-oh. You're unmuted, but I cannot hear you. I don't know if you're trying to talk or not. If you are trying to talk, okay, he's refreshing. So I'm gonna just buy time and just chat. Oh wait, okay, it's back. Hello. No. Still cannot hear. Maybe your computer is picking up a different microphone on accident. Sometimes they're weird like that. I've had things like Google Meet, Hangouts, or whatever try and say, "Hey, your speaker's your microphone, right?" And I'm like, "No, it's not. What are you talking about? That's not what a microphone is. That is at best an audio output. Certainly not an audio input." Well, let's see. I don't know how to troubleshoot this in the meantime, but in the meantime, Every time it pops in and out, I'm like, ah, is this my chance? But no, it's not. So... let me see. Can I do anything? Is there something anything on my end I can do? Let me make sure. No, user volume's good. You're not, like, muted or anything. Show non-video participants, call, message, mention. Oh! If you want to try video, if somehow that makes it work, maybe it won't go out. But if it gets the audio to work, that'll work as well. Do right now is we will call a quick audible. I want to go back to break for a second while we sort out everything, hopefully. Hello and welcome back again to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was that was briefly that was about, I would say, 4/5 of Too Many Flesh Uppers by Los Campesinos. Now we are here with our final guest, Pedro Mendes. Hello.
Hello. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
No, it's fine. It's even with the pre-show check-in, things can always break between the pre-show and your appearance. So, and nothing if not resourceful, and make it work somehow. I've never had a technical difficulty end a show, and I'll never let it happen yet. But so welcome. So important question. You before now. This is the first person was just a submission. The second person was a commission, but who was vaguely aware. Did you know about Indiepocalypse at all before I contacted you?
I think that the first thing I saw about Indiepocalypse is a Daniel Dante game that's called Skate RPG.
Yes.
Skate RPG.
Yeah.
He's a friend of mine, and I love his work. He's a very angry Brazilian video game maker,
yes.
And it's very underrated.
Yeah, no, that is there is a whole honestly, once you get out of North America, and then this kind of trio of North America, Europe, Japan, I think you kind of start losing a lot of game developers very quickly, and a lot of them are underrated.
I think that he's more underrated here in Brazil.
Oh wow!
Than outside of Brazil. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because that was one of those things. Not to spend a lot of time just talking about someone else's game, but yeah, Skate RPG rules, and I was super excited when it was submitted, and then even also very deliberately saying no, the English version is a secondary version of this game. That is not the and I like to there's someone I'm looking at for commissions who is in Chile, and I'm if they've made a game not even in English, I'd probably be fine. Partially because I can functionally get by with Spanish, so I can kind of basically read it. but also
Yeah.
I don't care too much. I think in doing this, I've been kind of like coalescing or putting together these like developers that I had known about through just having a giant folder of indie games, but putting them like more cohesively together. As like, oh, these are people making these specific games that I'm more aware of the creators behind them. Because I think someone had turned me on to you specifically back in like around like the third or fourth issue. Oh no, I forgot how to say his name now. But who had created Conurbation. KK. Oh no, I forgot how to say it. Forgive me, but yeah. So like, oh, have you checked out this stuff? I'm like, oh yes, very cool. And then, but back then I did not have commissioned developers. It was like, it did not come around the second year. But anyway, speaking of commission, to and put an end to my rambling, tell me what is Policia do Espanto?
Polícia do Espanto is basically a clone of Pac-Man, but with a kind of horror mix, horror style. Initially, I wanted to make a more complex game, something like Splatterhouse maybe, but one day I think that there is this puppet combo game that's about clowns, and it's a Pac-Man in a old house, haunted house that is part an evil circus. So it's full of, instead of the Pac-Man ghosts, you have the killer clowns and everything. So I had this idea about making a more traditional Pac-Man game, because it's 2D. So the Puppet Combo make 3D games and now. So it's a Pac-Man about the police. So I have this kind of revengeful ethics making video games, because I always played games where you are the police force or the army or the guys beating up the punks in the streets.
Always people, as they say, restoring order, as they say, you know.
Yes, exactly. So my current mission, I can say, is making arcade games, but trying to get this revenge about this reactionary themes of the classic arcade games.
Yeah, right. Because they're classic arcade games are very mired in just kind of consumerism. Basically, they're products. You know, they're a lot of them are one step removed from pinball or whatever. In a way, they're kind of the evolution of the game as a means of extracting coins from people.
Yeah.
But there, like there is, especially in arcade style, there is not as much room where people are saying something. Pac-Man does not ask you very many questions.
Yeah, but you can use it since it's impregnated in everyone's minds, everyone's imagination. So you can use it to today. Today is easy. We have this possibility we haven't before to use this vocabulary of games to say something that was not there at the beginning.
Right, and you can do it through this familiar framework, even.
Yeah, and it's easier to make things without trying to reinvent. You can simply use the ideas that already exist in the world.
Yeah, without worrying about right. In the same way that you don't need to reinvent like cameras and you don't need to invent new instruments to tell new stories. You can use the language that exists within games to say, radically different things. It's an extended space.
I'm not hearing you right now.
Oh, sorry. I was saying games are in a way where you don't need to reinvent everything in order to tell a story in the same way. In order to tell a different perspective, you wouldn't need to make new instruments that can only be told to tell a story. You can just use the ones you've already got.
Yeah, that's the idea.
So tell me a little bit about what is, because you had worked in, what is Lama? Is that, if that's just how you say it?
Lama, the magazine.
Yes.
Lama is a project of Daniel Dante, the guy behind the Skate RPG, and Romulo Ladeira, that's another friend of me and very unknown game maker. So they made this magazine with other colleagues, other artists, and other editors. So it's basically a fanzine about indie games, but with a left-wing radical perspective. So my participation in this magazine is with a little manifesto about red anarchist independent video games. I think that this is the text that I choose to put in this magazine.
Yeah, there is, and I encourage people to even. It is a sentiment, I think, that gets across the language barrier in a lot of cases, and I think that is. Or also spend a second. It's a PDF, folks. You can copy and paste into Google Translate and figure it out. You don't need to I think in the modern era, this idea of language doesn't need to be quite that big a barrier.
Yeah.
Like you can you'll maybe lose nuance in machine translation, but I think the sentiment. I mean, you get the sentiment from the cover, honestly.
Yeah, the automatic translations are always bad, but they can help you to understand not only the sentiment or the main ideas of the text, but also are a good tool to know a bit more and to discover a new language. So we here at Brazil, especially, we are familiar with the video game culture. We're always under this limitation, this need to translate and to feel the ideas without actually knowing the language properly.
Yeah.
So I think that this is something that is probably there's this movement of the democratizing. I don't think that this is the right word, but democratizing the pain of not being able to understand everything properly.
Right. Yeah, that is not probably, but what is like you're saying, the sentiment is there. I get what you're saying. Of hey, spend a second to realize not everything is in your language, and not everything, like, despite the efforts of centuries of colonialism and imperialism, not everything is in English, and that's, you got to learn to deal with it every now and then. And it's, what everyone else has to deal with constantly, of things just being assumed English.
Yeah. And now with these automatic translations, everything can be put in English even without the work of a human translator. So we can finally don't understand each other in a more circular way.
Yeah. Right, we're closer to like half understanding each other vaguely, but
yeah,
it's still better than not at all.
The language is vague. Is always vague in some way. We frequently think that we communicate well with people that talk the same language as us, but many times it's kind of a illusion.
Yeah, I'm certainly not, even within like the U.S. Because it's so damn big. I do not speak I have different linguistic touchstones and ways of speaking that are far different than people in these other parts of these coasts.
Yeah,
I have my own accent. Things I don't even think about. I'm sure I don't have the real thick Boston one, fortunately, but I'm sure I have it worse than a lot of people don't even realize, or maybe it does stick out more than I think if I was to say it. But anyway, language. It's a real complicated thing. How do we get so many of these things? What's the deal? But that's beside the fact. So what? This, I mentioned it up at the top of the show. So what drew you, in particular, to this kind of arcade, classic style of game design, personally?
What do appeal to me?
Yeah. What was the initial appeal that got you there?
Yeah, I think that it is less than an appeal and kind of a mandatory need to conform to obsolete video games.
Yeah.
Because I always play the games that are at least 2 generations older than the current one.
Yeah.
So when people were playing PlayStation 2, I was playing Super Nintendo, and then people jumped to, I don't know, Nintendo Wii. I was playing PlayStation 1 and this kind of stuff. So there is this need in the sense, but there is a need to conform it.
Yeah.
In the sense of making the game, because I am not a programmer, so I am more a kind of artist, creator.
Yeah.
So I always use the softwares like Multimedia Fusion and Construct, so more visually oriented. So it's much more easier to make it 2D games with low resolution graphics, and there is this problem also with high resolution graphics not running in the computers that I have to work.
Right.
So
Yes.
I can't make games with updated modern graphics, because I don't have the computers, updated computers to make the games.
I think that is something that I've been talking about that people take for granted a bit too much. Is that like you need big computers to make big games, like
Yeah.
and not like I think there's a lot of people take for granted the idea that you just like people to just have a modern computer as like in the same way you would have like anything else in your house. Like, oh, of course I have like I guess a bed or a refrigerator and a modern PC that runs all modern video games.
Now, here in Brazil, a bad computer that you use only to go to Facebook and read emails is kind of 2 minimum wages.
Yeah, it is.
So it's not the computer that you use to make games, but it's the computer we have to make the games, and we have to do the thing work, you know.
Yeah,
and they are not cheap.
Right. No. Right.
Even then, they are bad and not cheap. So that's the problem.
Right. It is. There's a lot of ways the true lo-fi in the way that it's like I'm recording an album on a tape deck because I can afford blank tapes and a boombox as a record feature.
Yeah.
It is, and then you get it is aesthetics born from limitations that you have, like you can't work around, which is I think you can see it often in sometimes in design when aesthetics are born of limitations, like actual hardware limitations, and you see a more of a reality to it than sometimes like when you're setting your own limitations, you sometimes see where people are cheating around the edges, you know, of like technically they have a really strong computer.
Yeah.
And you see like, oh, that's a really complicated thing there that obviously got a good computer. But when I was I've been playing through, I found, of course, that I truly owned the full Famicom library, or not Famicom, NES technically. There's not any Famicom games in it. That's a whole other venture to go down. And it has, you know, unlicensed games and homebrew stuff because, you know, it's full preservationist style. and I remember thinking, like, as I was asking you onto the show, and as I was playing these games, and thinking, like, oh, like, Policia do Espanto, I would, if I, it would not feel out of place to see something like that come up with, it says, if, along my list I would play Policia de Espanto unlicensed, and it has, like, and I mean this in a very complimentary style, of it feels like that, of that homebrew style. And I think the same goes for a lot of your work, is of that ethos.
Yeah, there is, of course, a aesthetic value that I see in the old games, not only the material need, but the material need kind of born the taste for obsolete aesthetics. So I don't really like, for example, fancy pixel art games that I think that people call it high pixel, something like that.
Yeah.
That this pixel art game that looks like a very modern thing with the processors heating up.
Yeah.
With all visual effects and things that aren't not even close to pixel art, like kind of hiding the pixel art. The pixel art is that I like is the crude ones.
Right.
So I try to make my games look like old games, not only because they are more ready to run in the bad computers that I have to make them run and to test them, but because they are more beautiful too.
Right. There's an aesthetic difference, and it feels like trying to, like, if you were to harken back, someone trying to harken back to, like, the tape deck style of recording, but all they did was, like, they didn't actually just, like, record onto a boombox. They just recorded it on a $100,000 studio, and then added some tapiness and Audacity after the fact.
Yeah. I even make some sound effects to sound worse than they would be. There's this aesthetic feel that people have about sound on old video games, that they are they have always this texture. This kind of black metal texture to them, But actually, the original arcade games, have pretty good sound effects with quality, because they had a entire a ROM to make them run in the game. So every sound is a ROM chip, is a memory chip. So the console games have worse sound effects because they have only one memory chip.
Yeah. There's, like, you forget that those huge cabinets weren't just to put a TV inside of. There's a lot of hardware in there.
Yeah, and they have very clear sounds, but I like to talk more with the expectations of the people about how the game show the sound, even that it's not historically accurate.
Right.
That there is some aesthetic revisions about what a game with this old feeling show the sound, show the look.
Yeah, and there are so many, like, even like within the consoles, they, you know, the different sound chips. If you spend enough time with them, like they do, like there's a clear, you can usually pick out like a Super Nintendo from a Genesis pretty easily by what they sound like.
Yeah.
And like the way the different sound chip handles like things like the bass and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the Mega Drive bass is amazing.
Yeah, it's when you grow older and you put away childish things and you acquire taste. You're like, so the Mega Drive was perhaps the beautiful sound that I was always looking for.
Yeah.
But that all said, we are on post technical difficulties. We are approaching the end of our moment here, Pedro. Glad to have you on the show. Glad to have you on the zine. We're going to take one last break, and then probably have like a little baby group segment at the end. I'm used to having really long ones, but I've been trying to rein the show in, and we're cresting like an hour and a half already. But where's my? There you are. Yeah, so we'll be back in about minute 49 with everyone, and then the end of the show. Thank you for being here. Welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Standing on the Edge of a Moment by Makeup and Vanity Set. We're here with the whole gang. I think we're gonna mostly wrap this one up. We're at an hour and a half. I'm like, it's manageable. It's winding down, and I want to eat. I've gotten so used to like I'm trained now on Saturdays. Like it's 5 o'clock, I want to have some food. So before we head out, now that we've got everyone back in the call, does anyone else have any like burning questions? Any statements they had to get out during other segments, or just in general, any questions for other guests or even myself? No, so, well, in that case, we're just gonna go around the circle here, and it's the end of a podcast, so you know what that means. It's time for people to tell you where you get their stuff, and then I say, hey, you should get their stuff. It's good stuff. So, starting with Pedro. Where can people find your stuff? Where can I get your games and your art and just kind of everything you put out?
I have a Patreon page that is I don't even remember.
Don't worry, I've got you covered. It's patreon.com/Manos PlayStation.
Yeah, that is. And my Instagram page that is Manos PlayStation, and my Twitter page that is Manos Play. So I'm always selling games through my social media. You can pay for the games with PayPal, or you can subscribe to my Patreon.
Yeah, that is. And folks, I recommend you. I mean, I say this obviously. Everyone on the show, everyone in the Apocalypse zine is kind of like comes with a full-fledged endorsement from myself. I think like the Indiepocalypse is kind of like a what do you want to think of it as? Kind of like a mini catalog of developers whose work you should then follow beyond the pages of this. Love games. What have you got? Where can you get it?
So I have an itch.io page. It's just Love Games, all one word. You can find me on Twitter. My handle is Love Game Studio. Do not follow me. I tweet nonsense all day long, and it's really quite depressing to see. I have a Patreon somewhere as well, but
If
I
you
forget what it's
if you
called.
dig through
I
those
think it's
pages,
called-
you'll find it eventually, right?
Yeah, if you find me on Twitter or itch, you'll find my other stuff. Those are my main haunts.
Oh, perfect. And KDX, it feels like it's been an eternity now. Where can we find your stuff?
Mostly on my website. Everything is linked there. It's kdx.re. That's
Perfect.
all.
Yes. I love it. I love to see someone having their own website. It's a great thing to do. I highly recommend that you get your own website. It's pretty easy to do.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, it's a I recommend. I'm looking at your list and I'm like, and you can do fun things like you can just put a music list on here and be like, I saw like we found the music industry, and then I look down and I go, yes, Andrew's album, Andrew's album of 2022, 2016's Worry. But anyway, speaking of 2022, the aforementioned album that I was trying to correct. Anyway, I'm gonna stop looking at just his list of albums that he likes. You can find Indiepocalypse at indiepocalypse.com. It's the right where it says on the tin. You buy it. I am closer still, but not quite at, because I have to do like the beginning of the month prep work for this issue. But otherwise, I'm extremely close to just you being able to purchase Indiepocalypse from my very own website. So should other websites vanish, should things ever change, I go, well, at least I've got my own website. I think I can even do subscriptions on there too. You can really just e-commerce, folks. E-commerce. Electronic commerce. What a world it is. Turns out they want you to do it, so they make it kind of easy to do. But yeah, if you're interested in that, I have my own Patreon. Then it's just indiepocalypse.com/Patreon. I like to get a URL and then put all my slashes, so in case Patreon ever goes away or I have to use something else, you can still technically go to that and you'll go to whatever crowdfunding subscription service, whatever exists. You can always submit your games at indiepocalypse.com/submit. It'll always just go to an itch jam page where you just click, yeah, I'll put my game here, and then you add it, and then it's very easy to do, and then you don't even have to think about it. And then sometimes you'll get a nice email from me at the end of the month that says, hey, I want to give you $20, and then maybe 40-ish later next week, and then at some point in the future, who knows, when you get that next $5 or whatever it is. But that's it. That's the show. I don't think I have anything else to say. I think that's all the stuff that I say. Thank you all for being here on the show. I have to click my other thing.
All right. Well, thanks for having us. It was fun.
Yeah, great to have you all. Great to have the show. I'll see everyone, not everyone here, but some people. I will see some different people next week. Until then, thank you and goodbye.